The past 2 weeks, we've learned a lot about this meta, but most importantly, from watching the local news, I learned that we shouldn't have 80-year-olds running this country. They can't even figure out when to fucking clap. Outcast Haven podcast starts now.
I always like a good reference to to politics to start, because that definitely it makes things nice and smooth.
It's bad when liberal talk
polarize
shows
off the bat. Just polarize it.
No, it's bad when liberal talk shows are ripping on like Nancy Pelosi, like rubbing her knuckles. Like that's how I didn't watch it. I just saw it on the highlights, like rubbing her knuckles together and then sitting back down. And I think it was Schumer or somebody else, like right, and then sits back down. I'm like, what is he? This is why we need young from every party that's in politics, just young blood, maybe make a rule that if you're over 75 and wear diapers, you can no longer be in politics.
I mean, I'll be honest though, like that's how we get wars. Is like you get a bunch of 40-year-olds running every country, and it's like we're just gonna have fucking wars all the time. Like,
I mean, Putin's old too, and look at what happened. So that's untrue.
That is you can't prove what's that called? A false positive isn't a negative.
So you can use whatever ammo you can find when you're fighting a battle of words that mean nothing.
And that's why Jason was captain of his debate team in high school.
Yeah, that's why I never joined something like that.
Master debater.
I did use that line in work one time. Totally different story. For another day.
Got written up. It was a whole thing.
No, this was like 12 years ago. You could still say funny things like that and people wouldn't lose their mind. It's when comedy was still an art.
God, Jesus. The good old days.
The good old days of the 1990s and early 2000s.
The 90s.
Let's be honest, like the thick skin, the world of thick skin has definitely disappeared, because I'm actually rather impressed. It's funny because it's like a great segue as usual into talking about this week. I think my favorite thing about this week is the fact that people need to just maybe toughen up a little bit and stop whining the second that something seems bad. Like maybe that's something we could apply to the world and also to the world of Flesh and Blood, because I'll tell you one thing. We saw a decrease in something and nothing got banned. So I feel lied to. That's all I'm saying. I feel like social media lied to me. I was under the impression nothing would self-correct ever. That's in the world or in Flesh and Blood, right?
I think we need to stop blending the two now, because I'm confused on what it's social media about the world or social media about Flesh and Blood.
So what Blake is alluding to is,
and I get it.
I don't think it's I think it's a nominal drop. I don't think it's a huge drop. I don't think much has changed. It was from 47 to 40.
I think it's
what I do think is why we don't have to worry about bans is he's at 30% of his living legend. So he's been out for 4 weeks and already has 4 weeks of total lifetime play for this hero from pre-release, or is it 3 weeks? When did this come out? February.
So they
4th?
said, like James White said in his second most recent interview, that like the living legend is just like an aside thing. Like they're not using that as a tool for balancing the game at all. That's not at all what they're.
But those heroes are no longer playable in events, correct?
Right. But
that's what I'm saying.
What James said was that like they banned stuff in Chain because yes, could Chain have just won out the next 8 months of events and maybe hit living legend? Yes, but that doesn't mean that they want 8 months of shit meta. So they ban stuff.
That has nothing to do with my point.
If they need stuff corrected, they will correct the things.
Right.
The point the point of he's a third of the way to living legend, so don't worry about it, is a shit point.
No, it's not. He is. He's 30% there. How's
so
that
just don't solve him. Don't fix him. Don't fix him at all. because he's almost done.
He doesn't need to be fixed. He doesn't need to be fixed. We've already seen it with the rise of Prism. Prism is the worst fucking deck to play against there is, and nobody bitches about it. And here she comes to not save everybody, but to destroy people's hopes, hearts. Their soul is gonna melt. The only deck that I've played that's worse to play against in Prism is playing against Ice Lexi when you have a quasi aggro deck and you just block the whole game until they're out of deck. And like, oh, that was a lot of fun. I did nothing.
When you were
It
playing
was just
against
stupid.
Blake on Ice Lexi, that seemed fucking miserable.
I've played a couple Ice Lexis, and unless you're running a Guardian, it's just horrible because you just don't do anything the whole game.
Yeah.
Do nothing.
Yeah.
I could see that.
I mean, even with the Guardian, you don't really do anything all game unless you get like a big lead and like you come across a couple massive hand destruction or like action point destruction kind of things, right? Like unless you have a dominated spinal or dominated crippling, like you basically don't do anything anyway, unless they just break themselves.
With Guardian not doing anything is like, oh, this happens to be one of my win cons. Cool. Yeah, I'm down with not doing anything.
Right. Yeah. Lexi's like, well, I don't want you to do anything. And Guardian goes, cool. So I'll just deck you and then I'll kill you after you have no arrows left. So it happens to be like a strategy that you could go like, well, I mean, I can turn this bad situation into a positive and we'll just win this game anyway.
Yeah. No, and that wasn't a shit take, Jason.
He's gonna be regardless of what happens, no errata or no ban, he's gonna be gone within a month or two. We're only halfway through the pro quest and he's 30%. People aren't gonna suddenly stop playing him. They're gonna continue to play him because I mean he's fun to play in my opinion.
After ProQuest season, and I guess they're just gonna have stuff throughout the year. They got calling and
you got Battle Hard and you got Fallen. We're rolling in the season now of Flesh and Blood, where there's big event after big event. There's no downtime now, probably until the holiday season, until Thanksgiving. I'm guessing they'll do the same thing. They'll just roll the season starting in February and run it straight through November. So, I mean, maybe that's why they're coming out with these extra sets where you can sprinkle in more heroes, because they know there is some heroes that are going to be more popular and powerful, and they're going to hit their legend points and they're just going to be gone.
I was kind of thinking that too, that like after our last podcast where we talked about how they changed up their sort of set release schedule, part of me too is thinking like as characters start to hit that living legend, it might be just more easy for them to release replacement characters if it's a bunch of, because I feel like if you're making a core set, a draftable set, you have balanced a character with their card pool in that set. You can't like release, if you're going to replace a ninja and it wasn't already planned for that core set and the core block of cards, then that's kind of difficult. But if you've got 2 fucking supplemental sets a year coming out, then that immediately becomes easier to just plug in a new ninja. I don't know, something like that.
So
yeah, they definitely have to have something there.
Yeah, I think the only thing about him getting points so fast is that I don't know. I think it has less to do with like him being that much more powerful than Chain or Briar was in their heyday, and more to do with just a volume of events. Like if Chain had
100% volume of events,
if Chain had this level of events, he would be banned. Like he would have been banned already. Like because he wouldn't be winning. He wasn't winning 40, like, because realistically, right, we moved backwards. I get that it's nominal 47 to 40, but I also think that the other percentages, like seeing both Viscerai and Prism jump 7% each, and their win percentage is really significant. Like I think like closing the gap, because realistically we're not talking about just Starvo versus the world. We're talking more specifically about Starvo versus those two, and if they both effectively close the gap 14%, that's a big number, because the gap went 7% both directions, right? So I just think that like Prism moving up will instantaneously negatively affect Starvo, because you can't keep playing the same deck. That's the thing that people don't understand. We continue to play, like we play the Starvo, but here's the thing, like modified Starvos have to start adding defense reactions for the mirror. So you're playing like turn timbers or staunch responses to counteract the things. Everybody's adding unmovables. On more than one occasion, I was playing just like aggressive Starvo, and I was getting like 1 card and unmovable from Arsenal to full cover a revealed fused Oakenold. Like, that's very significant that the meta has adjusted that hard in basically 14 days from the start of the Starvo world. And I think that when you start to see those things, I think people who were playing the deck, A, because it was easy, are going to abandon it. And B, if Starvo starts to add defense reactions, they start to play like old Guardians. They slow down a little bit. They're not revealing as consistently. They're not getting the gut dominated go agains. And all of a sudden, Prism becomes a worse matchup again. And if Prism is rising, then all the people who have never played a Guardian Prism matchup are going to play it about 2 times and be like, F this noise, man. I'm out. Like, I don't want anything to do with this nonsense. And they'll just go play literally any other deck that has more access to action points. Because if you've never been overrun by auras with a Guardian where you can't consistently attack like 3 wide and then finish on an aura, you have not lived misery. I'm telling you that much.
Yeah, it's gonna. I will say this. Somebody in our comments last week brought up a great point. I agree with this, and I'm just going to throw an assumption and call it fact. So when LSS went to print Tales of Aria, they had a print error. This is a true fact I just made up. So they had a huge print error, and Endless Winter was just supposed to be a standard Guardian card, and Oakenold was supposed to be Oldham Specialization, but there was a print error and those got reversed.
Wasn't that
and
Adam? Was that
no,
Adam
somebody
on our video?
I don't know if it was Adam. Somebody else posted that on our video, and I agree 100%. I would love to see those two switched. I think it makes more sense to have them switched because Oakenold's so strong, and plus he's like front and center on. I mean, just makes sense.
Adam
that
had a
that would
joke
be
about that
professional.
on the podcast that he was on.
He's, to be fair, he is in the Endless Winter art. The Endless Winter art is just terrible.
It's fucking trash.
It's
I did
bad.
not
Yeah,
know. I didn't know. I didn't know there was a character in that art. I thought it was just fucking icicles,
like some creatures.
Yeah,
no, that's a prime example of the fact that the game has incredible art, but there is definitely some
must
weird
be
art.
Mark Poole art.
Oh, here goes. They're just okay. Pause for a minute, just so everybody who wants to like throw a hissy fit can do it now, and then we'll move on because
the joke is that Mark Poole.
And he has absolutely horrible art and absolutely amazing art.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's like my running internal clock is that he's like, I can't do this too well. Like I could do good stuff, but as good as Tome of Harvest is, I need to make a Flash Freeze because that's just
Flash Freeze is just absolute trash. Tome of Harvest is amazing.
Oh god, yeah, no.
It's a prime example of the fact that like anybody who creates things is gonna have really good stuff and some stuff that's not great, right? Like
take us for example.
Like I was just gonna say the majority of our stuff is pretty dog shit. But then we've got like a really great,
we got some really good stuff too,
video or something, and then we just come on with this.
Right.
This is our Flash Freeze.
I mean, I definitely think Oakenold, honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I'm a Guardian player. I love to play Guardian. I love the fact that Oakenold is a 3 cost. It is insane. It is like a Guardian wet dream that they gave a really good card to Guardians at the 3 cost. That's people like, oh, it's gotta be fused, and you're like, yeah, go figure. You can do it every time you see it. You almost know. Like when I see someone play an unfused Oaken, I'm like, oh no, baby, what is you doing? What is you doing?
Yeah, it's like you have 2 turns. You have 2 turns to see an Earth card. Are you ever gonna go 2 turns without seeing what you need to fuse?
No, the deck is predominantly Earth and Ice, right?
So if you draw it and you don't have it, Arsenal is shit, and you're gonna draw it in the next hand, and then you can fuse and go nuts.
I think honestly, if it was just a 4 cost, it would make the card instantaneously harder for Guardians to play, and then would make the power level temper.
It'd be not great.
It would be because it would be good. The issue is like now you have to pitch 2 cards, which means you have to keep a 4-card hand if it's not in your arsenal, which is really, which is hard with Crown of Seeds, or you need Tunic to be up. It makes the cost curve a lot harder to deal with, which is the biggest thing. Is it makes it a lot harder to pull off consistently and or without taking a significant amount of damage. And especially in a world where now people are starting to run unmovables and just arsenal them and wait, it gets a lot more dicey to just think that you can sit on it and be like, oh, this will definitely catch me up. And then when somebody blocks with one card from hand and unmovables away your like best card in the deck, you're like, and you're just like, yeah, that happened. Because right now it feels bad when you reveal and fuse it, and you're like, yeah, 11 dominate, go again. They're like, I block with a card, pitch red and movable from Arsenal, and you're like,
There's I will say it has in a lot of the decks become very easy to block out even a crippling crush for 13 dominated fused.
Yep.
I mean, we've blocked those out. I mean, the blocks because of adjusting decks and you know what's coming. If you run, like you said at the beginning, if you're running the same deck for 2, 3, 4 pro quests, you're going to get run over by time 3 or 4 comes around because people have adjusted. I mean,
right.
The last one I didn't even go with that many blocks and still could beat, I could outrace a new Bravo. So it's just different what you're running and testing Nyx. I mixed Nyx Azalea to build with my build and ran it into 2 Guardians, and it gave you fits, but it was not
annoying.
It was not. It was playing it more like Lexi than it was playing Azalea. It was very control, very slow. Everything had a purpose. It was to make your hands feel really clunky, and it did its job. So there's decks out there. I mean, I'm right now teetering between Azalea and Briar. I switched my Briar. I did a 9-card switch. Talked to Blake the other night. Blake, here's my ideas that I'm going to throw out because, I mean, Berg, you little son of a bitch, steals my deck, runs it. Nobody else is running it. So I'm like, well, I'm switching it. So I switched it out and put in some cards that people aren't playing right now. I put in the one card that I've not seen anybody play. So I'm excited to see how that card functions. And I will release what card it is next week after it. It's not like a huge surprise that I don't care, but it's fun to get people to come back and listen to see what the card is that I put in and if it worked or not. You can guess what you want. I'm not telling you what it is, Dane. I see you over there trying to be like, I'll message it to you.
Yeah, message me because I'm super curious now.
Yeah. It just does something that is very beneficial in this game that I'm going to take advantage of in Briar and see how it works out. But yeah, just messing around with even that deck to play with things. I've gone from D-Reacts in to D-Reacts out. I don't know what I'll do now if I keep them out. It's just interesting the way you can adjust these decks in between, because the more defensive new Bravo becomes because of the mirrors and because of other things, the better Bravo becomes, because I actually want a more defensive Bravo. I like that, because that means they're not coming at me, and
Give
I
me
can
a slow meta. Give me a slow meta all day, please.
But yeah, for you, Prism player, of course you want a slow meta. I got 32 auras. What are you gonna do now? I'm just gonna sit here and swing those. Here, I'll pitch, make an aura, swing 32. You can't block that. Ooh, all right, I win.
You lose a life every time one of them hits.
Yeah,
I can go 11 wide.
I was watching Blake's game when we were doing a fun box tournament, and he had just killed the Odorath response, playing Odorath. I'm like, God, I was like, not punch, not physical, but just like wanted to bitch slap the person if they do that across me. Like, why do you got to do that right now? I just got rid of that.
Yeah. It's one of those things too, where like but I think like that to me is like what, again, like this is a classic example of like players of decks will defend their decks to no end. However, I might surprise you in the fact that I think that playing against Starvo does feel bad right now. And I'll completely acknowledge it, because I think that the deck, the way it functions right now, is really, really strong. And until people correct, it feels really bad. And for some decks, it's basically unwinnable. There's almost no world where certain decks can do anything about it. And that's the problem, because the core fundamentals of a deck like Katsu just don't function. with the way that Katsu is built, like you have to completely rebuild the deck for Starvo, because your Flick Flags mean nothing because they won't cover up the Oakenolds. You don't have any equipment. You don't, like, there's just so many things that you don't have access to that you need. You need unmovables, but as soon as you start playing unmovable in that deck, all the other things go away. But also Kodachis mean nothing to Starvo if the player is committed and just goes, cool, I'll just arsenal every turn, even if it means not swinging my hammer, and you will never touch me with a Kodachi. So even bigger than that's a dead card. I'll make 6 cards in your deck dead. You want to put them in still? Cool. You're going to get punished super hard for it. And like, mechanically taking decks out of the format, it is a bad thing for the game. I fully acknowledge that that's not a feel good for players of those decks, especially because I think that Fab is so hero centric for so many people. But that's why I also think that, to the same end that Starvo is problematic, I think mechanically what Prism does is problematic for the game in general, because what she does requires a solution that most decks don't have access to without specifically adding things in. No deck in the game has access to 2 specific action points except Brood. And they're the deck that probably has the least access to affordable enough cards to actually interact with auras. So the one deck that has action point economy to deal with it doesn't have the like attack economy to deal with it, and everybody else has the attack
Dash
economy.
would be the other action point deck that has.
Dash actually fucks me up pretty good. Like,
I was gonna say
every
Dash.
one of their max, or not max velocity, their
high
octane turns,
It's
it just clears my board. It's like, okay,
and
cool,
you take damage.
I have 5 auras out. Fantastic. Doesn't mean shit because you just boosted 3 times and now you're gonna pew 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 like all my shit away.
Yeah.
Which Dash, the fall of New Bravo will bring Dash up, which could help level the prisms.
Right.
So you'll get that roller coaster ride. I will say this as well. I played, and this is probably why Berg put down Katsu, is because we played and I had Dory with the sabers out, and I had the fridge in play, and I didn't have Valiant Dynamos because I couldn't find some to buy the day of. So I just had the standard fridge in play, and it, like, when he went, he had a natural full line that I blocked out with my fridge and cards in hand, because Dory runs 12 D reacts between the Steel Blade shunts and the Fate for Scenes and Sink Belows. She is so defensive, and then you just slicing with sabers. The problem is, and I played Nick's story the day after, and he had gone 3-0 with his axe story. When I went super fast with Briar, it just could overrun that. But also, I think that was the time he tried to trade damage, and we discussed afterwards that if she just goes full block, she can probably weed out my threats and then start axing me for insane damage.
Yeah.
So I think Dory might creep up, but just
Dory
a defense
just auto loses to Prism though. Like, I know Nick beat a Prism, but I mean, Nick's a really tight player. So I think that was more to do with it than his deck. Because
you don't think a Dory that can swing multiple times a turn could do something? I mean, a lot of times
Prism just has free reign unless you draw your Nourishing Emptiness.
I don't understand that, because there's no difference, because Dory could go with axes. You go 1, 2, and then attack with the axe on your aura on your third attack after putting 2 into you.
No, you can't stop Prism's Phantasm attacks. I'm just hitting you with an Erudition for whatever, and then War Tune. Well, like I'm throwing 20 damage at you.
But see, I think here's the thing. There's 2 things. Number one, the newer builds, like the axe builds, run typically, like, a lot of them will run more than 1 nourishing and CNC. So they'll run, like, sometimes they'll run 6 attacks, but they also run a ton of D reacts with their armor.
6, they are like 9 Steel Blade shunts.
They'll run like red shunts, which are 7. So they can off tunic, like,
are they 7?
Are they 7? I don't know. They're 6, whatever they are. But they can, like,
probably right.
they can almost full cover, right? So I thought it was 7, but because I think it's 5, 6, 7. But
so then
but
for
they,
one of my
so
attacks,
like
no, I'm just telling you
right,
what I've seen. Yeah,
right.
you guys are probably right, but I'm just telling you that like my prism has just run over. I have played 0 Starvos in the last 16 organized play games that I've played. I've played fucking Dorinthias. I've played fucking
Did you play sword? Like Dawnblade Dory is definitely way different than Axe
no. I
Dory. Like it's
played Axes and Sabers Dory.
yeah.
I played both of those.
I just think
I actually haven't played a Dawnblade Dory in the new meta. Is Dawnblade even good in the new?
no, it's not.
No,
It's
I
not
didn't
good.
think
The best cards for Dory were given to like. But I think the biggest
the
issue,
dual
Axe,
wielding. Yeah.
right?
Yep.
I think the biggest issue Axe or Sabers Dory has in a Prism is the fact that, like Slice and Dice and Blade Runner, which are the two best cards she got access to,
Mhm.
are actually so much worse in the Prism because they buff the wrong attack. They buff the second attack, which is the one you need to be big. You need the first attack to be big and the second attack to be little, because the first attack needs to clear auras and the second attack or the first attack needs to clear shields. The
Yeah.
second attack needs to clear auras. If you're going 3 into Dory with an axe or a saber, 2 or 3, she will give you a card and then you can pop an aura with a 6 attack off your Blade Runner, and she is just ecstatic that you're going to give her 3 cards to play her turn with every turn without an arsenal. Like I think that's the bigger
I think
issue.
it all depends on how the Prism player blocks out too. Are they gonna block every single 2 swing?
I think you just
Yeah.
race.
I
just
think
raise
but
the
If you
Prism.
raise, you lose.
you can play
I wasn't
20
even,
auras.
the games that I've played in Dorinthia. So I've played 2 axes and a sabers, and it has not. I don't think I've been less than 25 life when I've won any of those games.
I don't know. I don't know what their builds. I don't see how that's.
Watching Nick's build. Nick's build is pretty similar to the guy that I played at. God, I can't remember his name for the life of me. Played him at Viral. Skinny guy. I don't know. He's the one that's been running Dorinthia for a while.
Okay.
Christian
No.
or Cole.
Maybe Cole.
Cole was on Bolton.
Cole rings a
Cole was
bell.
on Bolton, I thought.
No, then that wasn't him.
No.
But no, it's just like I just take out a bunch of auras and I put in all of my 1 cost and fractals and all the attacks, and I just attack. I drop an aura if I have it.
A lot of them or any of them.
Like block them. Yeah, that's fine. That's 2 cards from hand. Sure, Dory, give me 2 cards to block out one of my 3 attacks coming at you this turn.
I think my thing is this. Mechanically, I think either way, it's a bad matchup. You could play an aura focused one. I still think you're in a bad spot, because if Dory just makes a couple spectrals, gets a couple auras out, there's not a lot of interaction you can do with her. And if she plays worst case scenario, if she draws blues and has access to an arc light in either spot, you attack her for the first one. She lets you get a couple of spectrals with your little tiny shield, or with her little tiny axe swing, and then she just drops an arc light. You have to attack that, and now she has access to like still her 4 auras with being able to do something else, and it puts you in a weird spot. I just don't see that. There's no way to consistently deal damage and clear like an aura, because the first swing on the dual wields is the worst of the 2. It's the small one, and that's always been the issue with Prism. You have to swing into Prism with a big attack and then finish with whatever small thing you have left over.
I also don't like the one thing I've seen with like the new Dory builds that I haven't been a fan of, and the thing that I was originally attracted to with Dorinthia was the poker. I love like the bluffs, and I feel like new Dory's not doing a ton of that. Like it's pretty straightforward. Like a lot of I saw very little sneaky damage getting pushed over the top. It was all very telegraphed with like the non-attack actions that were buffing the attack ahead of time, or because it seems like I can't remember for the life of me the fucking mech warrior card where they got the
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner. Thank you. I think I'd be able to remember that name. With like Blade Runner, like doesn't buff the current attack. You're not getting sneaky damage, and you're just telegraphing the next attack.
If you don't block those attacks, especially with axes, you could get swung at 3-4 times in a turn.
I mean, but so the issue, right? That's great. The issue still lies in the fact that like going again for Dory is a huge expense, and that's the biggest issue, because it's like, cool, your second one is 6. I'll just take 6. It's like, do you have a second Go Again? Like, it's so
You have
hand
another
intensive.
Blade Runner
And
there because
you have to, yeah,
Well,
like
just from
the
what I've
volume of Go Again is just
seen with Nick's deck and my deck is
Mhm.
I've played his a couple times and he can get 18 damage turns pretty easily.
Mhm.
right.
Once or
Yeah,
several
there-
times a game. And
right.
the Go Again in the deck there's probably 25 Go Again cards in the deck. So Go Again's like not an issue at all. So going
Right.
again is zero issue with that deck.
My
Yeah.
issue still lies in the fact that like you're going into a meta where you have to consistently beat Starvos who are going to punch you in the face really hard in exchange for hand intensive defense reactions where it's like unless your tunic is up, it does cost you 2 cards to defend 7. So covering the 11 Oaken Olds that are revealed or even like the 8s and 9s is like you're not covering full damage, you're leaking damage, and then they're going to frost hammer you. So you're going to defense react that. So it ends up being like expensive from your hand to defend out.
But New Bravos to block as well. All this is coming at is as the other person's taking constant damage and
Yeah,
never
which
blocking.
So this is
which
where we
New
would
Bravo
need to,
is until he spinals or like if he reveals spinals and cripplings, that's the difference. Is like my argument against like current Dory in her iteration is the fact that what she is doing is effectively what Brute does, which is good but not good enough because they're not offering any scary hit effects. I don't care in this game if I know I can give you 20, I'm happy to take 20 because we're trading because eventually I get to Oakenold you and you get to hit me with a vanilla damage back. Like you have to do something to make it negative for me to hit. That's why Prism is so painful to deal with because everything she gives you goes break it and bad happens, don't break it and something bad happens. Like it's a lose-lose situation. It's
Mhm.
like if you want to cover an Oaken, it's going to cost your entire hand. So then you just don't do anything. And now Bravo has a free reign at a free hand. And that's when he wins, is when every turn he doesn't have to block because he stole momentum because you had to give him your, 3-4 cards to defend it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I just think I don't think it's that cut and dry, to be honest. Just from playing the deck and seeing it, I'm not saying it's great and it's going to win. I'm just saying you're saying a deck is trash that runs.
I never said it's
I'm not saying
trash.
it's
I didn't say
trash
it's
at all.
trash. Nobody said it's trash. Your perception is that we're saying it's bad. I'm saying it's not good enough.
I think it's good enough to do well in a lot of
it top 8s, but nobody wants the top 8. Nobody's putting a deck together to top 8. They're putting a deck together to win.
well, it's got some wins. Dory's won a couple.
Right. Everybody has a win except for like 3 decks.
Azalea,
like-
Kano, and who's the third one?
I don't know. Azalea, Kano, and somebody. Right. No.
Dory's
Reiner?
up to 3. She's creeping
so-
up there.
All right, she's 1-3. That's fine. But again, like we've had this conversation before, right? Like Dory is a classic example of a deck that where did it win and who did it win against? Like, I get it. Everybody's meta is great. Everybody has a bunch of great players. But until you prove to me that she's winning in like a really good field.
But then in that logic, there's only 3 decks you should choose and the rest are trash. Literally, there's only 3 decks. No, I'm just saying if wins,
right.
The only 3 decks that are good are Prism, New Bravo, and Viserai. And New Viserai is still not there yet. The rest of the decks are all trash. Like they're not playable, and you should just choose one of those 3 if you want to win a ProQuest.
I think there's some argument to be made that you need to pick if you want to win a ProQuest. Like you can try and do it with Kano, you can try and do it with Dorinthia, but like the question is how good are the matchups into the 3 best decks?
But even Chain is bad. Briar's bad. Bravo's bad. Dash is bad.
Chain's conversion rate this last week was really good. Like for his representation is very low in comparison though. Like how much he's being played.
227 players, only 6 wins.
They got percentages at the bottom of the graphs, right?
Right. Their win percentages in the chart.
So his win conversion is 2.6. Then you got Prism at 5.4, New Bravo at 6.7, and Viserai at 3.
Right. So statistically, Chain and Katsu are not that far behind Viserai.
Katsu's
like
only 1%.
1%.
That's his win conversion is 1%.
Well, it was 2.5 this last week. I was looking at this last week's win percentage. Like if you look at it in the field, because this week was a much more level field by comparison. Because again,
That's such a spiked number of Starvos. Yeah.
Oh,
Right, like-
I wasn't going by week 2. I'm just going overall, both of them put together
sure,
into the
but again, like I still like I get it. I understand like decks are good. Decks can be good and win anywhere. I understand that. Like that's like saying the Bengals played in the Super Bowl. Like I get that anybody can get hot and anybody can play clean and get a good run. But I think that the reality is like those decks are good. They're fine.
Going
But,
into next season, what teams are you banking on to probably be in the playoffs? Are you going to put money on those teams, or are you going to be like, well, then you shouldn't put money on any of the other teams? Definitely don't put money on fucking, I don't know.
Yeah,
a bad team. I don't know who's a bad team.
Dane, you shouldn't do football analogies.
I shouldn't because I don't fucking want to follow the NFL at all. No, I regret everything. I fucking regret everything.
I understand that Dory is good. I just don't think that like she has great play into the 3 best heroes or even 2 of the 3. I think I think that she probably has an okay matchup into all 3, but that's a really dicey situation. Like not having a plus matchup into 1 or 2 of those 3 and having like a good matchup means that you're going to have to play your ass off all day.
So that brings
a lot.
So I'm trying to back everybody in a corner here.
Sure.
To me, that's an issue that there's only 3 decks that are playable to win right now.
I mean, welcome to TCGs. Every TCG ever in the history of TCGs.
Yeah,
I mean, that's how decks work. The 3 best decks will always be the 3 best decks. That's every game that's ever existed ever in the history of TCGs.
Is great.
It's not a tier 0 format. We're better than most.
I understand that, but I don't think.
Yu-Gi-Oh just went through a format where they literally had people stop coming out for like the last 2 months before set release because it was the same deck. Everybody was running one deck, and it was just fucking who pulled Yahtzee, who got to go first, who won the dice roll. That deck beats the. It beats.
That's why I don't play Yu-Gi-Oh. But I'm just saying I've played plenty of other TCGs where more than 3 decks can win.
Right, but I guess my argument is this: I think this week statistically compared to last week proves why Flesh and Blood is better than those other games because we still have the 3 best decks represented, but all of their percentages together are starting to level out. Like typically in a game, you have triangle formats where there's the most powerful deck, there's a deck that beats it, and there's a deck that beats the deck that beats it, and you're trying to guess which meta you're playing into. That's what you're hoping. You're saying, okay, do I think Starvo's the best deck? Is Prism going to beat it?
I guess I'm interpreting the data 100% different than you are, because when I look at week 2's data and look at Prism's win and then average over the 2 weeks, there's no change. If I look at
but there is, like, if you're looking at the percentages from last week to this week, it's a 7% increase for both Viserai and Prism in wins and a 7% decrease in Starvo.
From 2 weeks, I'm going to take the average. I'm not going to reverse it.
But why? Why would you not?
Because
why would you not look from
pool?
But that's the point of a game, is that you have.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying with the data that we have,
you're just ignoring the fact that things changed from 1 week to the next.
They did change.
I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like those numbers.
They did change, but not. You still.
I want to point out, Jason, that you backed yourself into this when you're like, I just make up facts, and it's a fact now. And now you're trying to have like a real argument about stuff.
I am looking at the fucking numbers on the table and looking at them. I can tell one has got a 1 and a 6, and then the next one's got a 1 and an 8. The 1 and the 8 is higher because I'm smart and I know 18 is greater than 16. I'm telling you, the numbers, you can't go off 2 weeks and say shit's changing yet. You need to see what happens this next week to see if things actually changing.
So then we shouldn't even talk about it. That it's irrelevant. It's all made up bullshit.
But I'm saying you're saying
no. It's all made up bullshit because it doesn't matter. I'm saying it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
I'm saying that you can't say that Bravo is still like up here.
He's the best deck. Yes, like there's always a best deck.
But he's not as best anymore.
But I'm saying if we're going to make a cut dry statement that he is not
leveling out
as bad as a bunch of other decks, which I don't know yet because we only have 2 weeks, but he's only dropped a tiny bit from week 1 to week 2.
7%.
So what is that
7%
tiny
win.
bit?
What's that?
The tiny bit that he has dropped is he has lost 7% of the winning pie.
Right. He's gone from 47 to 40%.
That's a pretty drastic.
To me, you're 3% over nominal.
But I'm saying, like, other decks have made movement too. You can't ignore the fact that the other decks went up in win percentages. They're taking away some of the graph from him because it takes time to adjust. Starvo is winning for the same reason that Cheerios Briar won, because the deck is naturally easy to put together. Prism got a lot of auras and a lot of things that are hard to figure out how to put together, and people are still trying to figure out how to play it. The other thing to keep in mind is that, like, Flesh and Blood isn't a dumb game to play. You can't just pick up Prism and go play it immediately in week 2 and expect to be like, well, this deck beats Bravo. No. Good people playing Prism beat good Starvo players.
That we keep running into is they keep making one deck that is a dumb deck, and they have to stop with that.
Yeah, you have to do that though.
But don't make it the most powerful, ridiculous. The most powerful, ridiculous deck.
Well, okay, so
how about this though?
So they make multiple dumb
like,
decks. The other ones are just shit. So they do that, and they're not all powerful, ridiculous. It's just that one of them was, or they do that.
Seeds Chain was one of the easiest decks to pilot. You flip over cards and then do a lot of damage.
Boost Dash, super easy to pilot. Really shit, but super easy to pilot. Dumb deck. So they make a lot of dumb decks. It's just
right. But
why did they make being super derogatory towards anyone that likes these characters?
No,
Sorry,
I'm just saying. I would like to not have a just super powerful deck come out every meta. Like this is
okay. My point. The only point that I want to make here is that we're not saying. The beauty of this game is that the people that will learn to pilot good control or mid-range decks will be able to eventually figure out their deck and outpilot the deck that is just the dumb deck. There isn't really any adjustment to be made to it. There's not any you can't pilot it better. It's just it does what it does. It just also happens to do it with very minimal input, so that anyone can do it, and it's really popular early on. It's the whole red deck at the beginning of every meta ever. It's aggro wins at the beginning of every meta.
But the problem is this particular deck isn't going away. This will Living Legends out, and the reason it is because it's going to continue to do well because it is Bravo, and Bravo has access to all of Bravo's cards. So this deck can go mid-range better than pretty much any other deck in the meta because it has access to such a large card pool.
Right, but at that point, it stops becoming a dumb deck.
That's my biggest problem with it.
But the deck will move back. It'll lose ground. That's the thing. It's already losing some ground. You can't. I mean, just saying that, well, it's only a second week, so it doesn't matter, is like saying a team in football won week 1 and they lost week 2. They looked awful in week 2. So let's just ignore that because it was just 2 weeks. Overall, they've looked good on average because they were bad one week and good the next. It's like,
so this deck is great on average is what I'm saying. Right. It is great.
But if you look at his win percentage overall, if you look at it comparatively to what Prism does, he's 0.6% better in the overall compared to their numbers. It's 6.5% win conversion for Starvo, 5.9 for Prism. The issue
for
is
week 2. But overall it's 6.7 to 5.4. Week 2 it was 6.5 to 5.9. It was much closer
because more people probably played Prism, or more people, like, if you just look at it, there were like 60 more people on Prism in week 2 than there was in week 1 or something. Like there's a bigger number of people playing it in week 2. Like Bravo basically stayed the same. Other people are playing it, but again, it's because it takes time to target a deck. You have to, it takes more time to figure out solutions because you have to figure out what the problem is you're trying to solve. It's the reason that Control typically takes a long time to catch up to formats. Like, people are like, you can't solve a problem if you don't know what the problem is. So week 1, people were like, just play Starvo, go Burr. and then that's why it won a ton.
Because no
Week
one's
2,
got a
people-
solution to this problem that we're presenting right now.
Because they don't know what the problem is.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
they don't. What's the problem?
I
Well, I don't know.
understand that.
I didn't play it. I didn't test against it enough to find the solution that my deck can run. Because not every deck can run unmovable.
Right, but here's the issue. So what was the solution for week 2? And this is where I will be happy when this deck is out of the format. Do you know what the solution was? Because we did it. We did the solution. We took
Add
the same
big defense
deck and
reactions,
changed it to
unmovable.
control.
You
And
put
no, we
defense
don't need
reactions in.
removals because we have staunch responses. We have better in that
We're
same
talking about the
deck.
whole field, though. We're not just. It's
the
more
field,
important
but
than
I'm
just Bravo
talking
players.
removables.
the reason why he didn't fall as far as he could have. So red deck wins week 1. Week 2, red deck usually loses to control. The problem
Month two. Like
month
this is
2,
not.
there's a whole new set out and it's gone. When is
No,
there?
not
Isn't
in Fab.
it-
We've
Not
got
Fab.
we've got
in
4
Fab,
months.
this is the first time, but I'm saying in general, you're making a statement that's never happened in this game. That has never ever happened. We've never had 2 months of meta before a new set is dropped in this game in a competitive field. Tell me, Dane, when was it? Give me the dates, please. Please give me the dates. When have we had a highly competitive time in this? We've had fucking COVID for the whole time this game's been out. It's never happened.
So your statement is just as false as making an assumption that the meta will correct itself.
I am saying
the game has never solved itself because it's never had a chance. So let's let it solve itself.
Right. So the solution is this deck will continue to do well because it can control better than any other deck can. What deck can control better than Bravo?
But it's not. But
major control
no.
deck.
But here's the thing. Okay, like here's the crux. Another issue with your argument is this. This is also, we're making grand, bold statements about how Starvo is or isn't bad, but we have yet to identify the fact that there are currently 3 different builds.
That's
Like,
what I'm saying. That's why I'll be happy when this deck is gone because number 1, it makes Bravo 1 unplayable. He is unplayable.
Right.
Which
but
sucks.
like that
Because
has happened.
Because this deck does what he does better because it's got the access to the same cards. That's one of the issues.
I mean, I think we should just get rid of Reinar then because Reinar invalidates the existence of Levia because he's a better brute.
Because
that's what happens.
Reinar cannot get cards that Lavia has. And she does an ability that is distinctly different, right? Distinctly different in how they do it.
Right.
These abilities are so close in the fact that the dominating part of the card, the hero part, only this one does the same ability 100 times better. I can dominate. Oh, you can dominate? I can dominate, go again and add 2. So it invalidates the card because it's doing the same ability, better. It's doing the same ability better.
I mean, again,
that's what I don't like about this deck is they've invalidated another one by doing it exactly the same way, only better with the same card pool, only triple the card pool.
Right. But that's also like another issue is like, let's be honest. How many cards do Bravo 1 and Bravo 2 share?
Well, they're going to share a lot as the meta changes and he becomes control.
But is he going to become control? Because if he becomes control, why not play Oldham?
He did. Nick took second with control Bravo.
But we didn't play. It's not control Bravo.
That was 100% control Bravo.
All right, cool. I mean, I spent a week building the deck, but that's fine. Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's my deck.
So you're telling me with all the term tingers and all the staunches and all the
we didn't play Turn Timber in that tournament.
Well, I don't remember what all
exactly
was in it,
right. You're making it assumption that I built that deck with Nick. We spent a week building. It's not a control deck. It has sinks, fates, and staunch responses. That's it. That's the defensive part.
It's 9. Just 1/6 of my deck is D-Reacts.
Right. So okay. So when Prism now has fate, sinks, and immovable, so we're playing control Prism. That's the only way to describe a deck that has defense reactions. Katsu plays fates, or Katsu plays sinks and flick flax in the sideboard. That's 6. That's not control, or that is control when they put them in. Are they a control deck?
I'll go back. I watched the video. He was playing a very control-oriented game. The way he
played control-oriented against specific decks, the way that Bravo has always played the game. Bravo has.
That's what I'm saying. That is exactly what I'm saying.
We fatigued Chain because
the deck is
was the way to
based off.
play it.
All right. I mean, we just said the same thing
That's fine.
in
But
different.
what I'm saying is, it just because he has 9 defense reactions and has an option to play slower doesn't mean he's a controlled deck. The intention of the deck is still to run people over with his ability. It's
Control
you can
him. You
build.
control the whole game by stacking your pitch to the bottom, and then you run him over. That
We don't play. We didn't play Fates and Sinks in like 2/3 of the matchups. They're
I
there
just
for specific matchups. Like,
no.
it was a targeted thing to say, look, we're going to beat Starvo with defense reactions, and we're going to beat Chain with defense reactions, and everybody else, we're not really going to play a different game plan. We're going to play the same kind of game plan against other decks. We're just going to add an element to tech against Starvo.
But that's the main opponent. What I'm saying is it was turned into a controlled deck because your main opponent, you just got done telling me all the other decks didn't matter. So you build your deck for the main competition that you're going to have.
Cool. Yep. Yeah.
But you just said it was control. I'm just saying he can be built control is what I'm saying. I don't know why there's an argument when I'm saying I don't like that he's there. That's what I don't like that he's there. He's a hero. I do not like because he completely invalidated the other Bravo. And he did that when me and Nick tested and found out old Bravo is absolute trash. You can't do anything with him. That's what I don't like about him.
How you guys feel?
I'll get over it.
So, anyways,
I don't know how it's not control.
It's fine. It's fine.
I'm an old idiot.
I'm over it. That's fine. I'm over it. I'm done. I'm not talking about it anymore. Like, I'm fine. I spent 7 days building the deck and testing it. You're telling me what it is. That's fine. I'm done. I'm done. It's fine. You're right. I'm wrong. I suck.
I mean, the basis of the deck is off Kale's deck, and then you add in your own tweaks to it.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us this week. It's been a ride. Oh, we do got to talk about the shit from LSS. So, we got reached out to with the calling. Let me pull it up just so I don't mess anything up. But basically, we're going to be doing a giveaway. Details specifically about how we're going to be giving it away to be announced. If you are still with us, we appreciate it. But basically, you are now going to benefit because we are giving away. Well, what do they call it? It's an answer to the call main event package valued at about $80. It's an entry into the calling event, entry into the battle hardened event, 3 Arcanic Shockwave Red Rainbow Foil Extended Arts, and a Tales of Aria limited edition storage box. We get to give one of those away. So be on the lookout for announcements coming out on our community posts, because we're going to basically tell you how the giveaway is going to run through that. Most likely going to be some sort of participation in a comment section on one of our YouTube videos like we've done in the past. Be on the lookout for that. It needs to be, right? It's going to be decided by next Friday. So we need to submit the person by next Friday. And so
When is the event?
The Indianapolis event?
Yeah.
Asking all these questions.
That's what the giveaway is for, right?
That's what it's for. Yeah.
I thought that was next Friday.
18th to 20th.
Okay. So the event is the 18th through 20th. If you do win our raffle or our drawing or whatever, you do get reimbursed. So if you're planning on going, just buy the stuff anyways. Get the package that you want to get. If you win this, you can basically swap it and get a reimbursement for what you purchased. So basically, you're just getting $80. But yeah, that'll be coming out, and excited to give that to you guys. Like when we get stuff like that from them, because we get to just pass it along to all of our supporters. So everybody, thanks for joining us for another week. It's good to be back. Happy to be back. Thanks for all the love you guys showed Nick on our video last week, and Adam the week before. So appreciate those guys coming on and starting to share some of their intellect and perspective on the game, because they're both very good players and do extremely well locally and nationally when we go to tournaments and stuff. So definitely excited to have them participating. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we will talk to y'all next time. Peace.